This is my career suicide note, but it's also a thank you from someone who is done with careerism. I'm a lifelong member of your party, and I'm voting for Donald Trump. Why? It's not just your industrial scale censorship or your endless wars or the fact that you disenfranchised millions of Kennedy voters through lawfare. If that were all I had, it would be sufficient in terms of conscience and rage. But there's more to this story than anger. Your hatred and censorship has taught me to admire Donald Trump and to love my fellow working class Americans. And for that, I thank you. This vote is for all the traumatized people who have been canceled and banished just for saying no to the establishment. This vote is for the surveyor, the farmer, the HVAC man, the nurse, the hairstylist, the deadhead, the veteran, and my fellow adjunct professors who have told me their stories about being bullied by the Democrats and their friends and family and their colleagues at work. This is for the young Black woman in my class last year who, on the day of Kamala Harris's visit to campus, said, quote, "You're going to hate me, Dr. Armstrong, but I'm not going. I'm voting for Donald Trump." Why would she think I would hate her for the way she votes? What has happened to our country? Somehow, Donald Trump has changed my mind. Where I once saw a cartoon white supremacist, warmonger, a narcissist, and now see the man who renegotiated NAFTA and the only president in the 21st century not to start a new war. Where I once saw the pal of the neocons, I now see a man who has awoken from his slumber, a disavowed Dick Cheney, George Bush, and John Bolton, even as my own party embraces these, quote, men. Why has the greatest entrepreneur of my generation, Elon Musk, risked his career to side with Trump? Why has the most consequential grassroots environmentalist of my time, Robert Kennedy Jr., sacrificed friends, family, and reputation to side with, quote, the Orange Menace? Why has the most courageous peace activist of the 21st century, Tulsi Gabbard, left our party? Because Tulsi, Bobby, and Elon see what I see. Donald Trump is resilient, and he's risking his life to change the fate of our nation. Trump is transforming the Republican Party into the party of peace, free speech, and the working class. He has converted George Bush's billionaire boys club of big war, big ag, and big pharma into a party that cares about public health and embraces regenerative agriculture. Now, I don't think the GOP is all the way there yet, but they're clearly the party that embraces dissent, and dissent brave speech is the fuel for evolution. So, for the first time in my life, I'm voting Republican. In the name of peace in Ukraine and free speech here at home, I'm casting my vote as a Kennedy Democrat for Donald Trump.
But back to the original question, about the potential consequences if, having gone all in, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to have thought about this long and hard before you did it. What was your thinking?
I mean, my view is that if Trump doesn't win this election, it's the last election we're going to have. That the Democrats, the Dem machine, has been importing so many people, bringing in so many illegals, flying in with this like CBP border app thing that nobody even knew about, like secret program. That's illegal, basically. It's illegal, but there's no action by DOJ to actually to stop it from happening. They're transporting large numbers of illegals to swing states. If you look at the numbers, these are the numbers from the government website. So, like from the Democrat-administered government websites. Like, where do you get this data? From the government website that is run by Democrats. And there are triple-digit increases in illegals to all the swing states. And in some cases, it's like 700% over the last 3 years.
Wow.
When somebody is granted asylum, they are fast-tracked. They can get a green card, and then 5 years after the green card, they can get citizenship and they can fully legally vote. And when they do so, they vote overwhelmingly Democrat. And sometimes I get this rebuttal of like, well, a lot of them, their social values don't align with sort of the far left sort of woke ideology. I said, that's true, but that's not their top priority. Their top priority is getting their friends and family also to the United States. And the Dems also issue all these programs, these sort of handouts, essentially, that make them beholden to the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
So they vote Dem.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these swing state margins are, sometimes 10, 20,000 votes. So what happens if you put, hundreds of thousands of people into each swing state?
I appreciate Elon Musk saying, "I'm all in," because this is a I'm all in race. This is a I'm all in fight. When he says Trump is saying fight, 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 because this is a fight.
Yes.
We're fighting for literally for our freedom to speak.
And that is.
Are you kidding?
Yes. Wow.
We're fighting to speak. We're fighting for, we talk about all the time, for these inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and all of this. Well, we're fighting for that.
Yeah.
And I agree with him. He said, if he doesn't win, let's just say, because if he does win, and we're praying he does, he's going to have a lot of work to do because they left a mess for him to clean up first.
Oh, absolutely.
So he's saying, let's say even if he doesn't win, let's say if he doesn't win, he said there will be no other election. There will be no more.
There will be elections, but they won't matter.
Right.
And that's what
he meant by it.
They will do the exact same thing they did with black people.
Dems have far more money than the Republicans. So the Kamala campaign dramatically outspends the Trump campaign in the swing states. The media is overwhelmingly pro-Democrat. So you got the press is a Dem cheering squad, and then you've got also almost all the Hollywood and entertainment, the celebrities also endorsing Kamala and being pro-Dem. So you got the celebrities, they got the money, they got basically everything on the side of the Dems. The Republicans are the underdog here. Trump's the underdog in swing states, and still it's a contentious. It's still a 50-50. After all that,
what does that tell you?
It tells me that if people actually knew what was going on, they weren't being fed nonstop propaganda, it would be a landslide in favor of Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
They got the money, they got the image, they got the media, but what they do not have is the spirit.
People, the spirit.
The spirit.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the spirit because the overwhelming majority of people who live in this country are hard-working people.
Yeah, most are not billionaires.
They're not millionaires, billionaires, or trillionaires. They're barely thousandaires.
Right. Never count out the underdog.
Right.
Don't count the underdog out.
Right.
But why not join the easier side? I mean, you're creating problems for yourself by getting on stage with Trump. You must have had friends who said that to you.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. People care about you. Like, why even get involved in this?
Well, because I think we want to remain a democracy, and we don't want to become a one-party state.
Yes,
that's the reason. And it's the exact opposite. The people call Trump a threat to democracy, but the people who are saying Trump's a threat to democracy are themselves the threat to democracy.
Yes.
One-party rule is not democracy. One party where essentially the party elite pick a candidate, as happened with Kamala, is not democracy. Where did the people vote? Show me where the people voted. No, there were no people voting. It was all just Dem party elite that just appointed someone. I think part of why Kamala is getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes. And Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
And I only ask that because you just look at them and you're like, that's a nervous person right there. I don't know. I mean, I assume you know them. Yeah.
Yes. Reid Hoffman was my vice president of business development at PayPal.
Yeah.
I've got a clip here that I wanted to show. I want to share with you guys, and this will be the last clip of the day. But I want to show this clip with you because this is alarming to hear. And I've talked about this many times, but it's almost like it's in one ear out the other when it comes down to it. When I say they're trying to indoctrinate your children, and by the time you find out about it, it's too late. So listen what this guy has to say.
The history of Marxism to the 20th century. I'm telling you, this guy, George Lukács in Hungary, laid this plan out. Because if you get these kids, like, you break down their innocence sexually, especially, what you can do is then they're gonna go home and they're gonna tell their parents that there's some like romantic, demisexual, tree self gender, some pronouns tree self or something. And their parents are gonna be like, what, and they're gonna be like, Mom, you just don't understand, So that you separate the younger generation from the older generations. You get them to break away and think that they're old fogies, that they're repressive. You don't want me to be my true self, etc. The goal is actually to destabilize the kids' identity so that they're groomable. That's identity without an essence in queer theory. And then they're groomable. Then you groom them into this stuff. And then they look at their parents' culture. They look at their parents themselves. They look at their parents' generation. They look at the parents' religion. And they say, that doesn't represent me. We need something completely different. So it's to just like in Mao's Cultural Revolution, and I mean that much more literally than you might suspect, it's to cut the tie between the continuity of culture up to that point, including the family, and to start a whole new culture afterwards. I mean, Pol Pot called it Year Zero. I guess Klaus Schwab calls it the Great Reset. But the goal is to separate the new generation from the traditions and views of the old generation. For Mao, it was to destroy the so-called four olds: old culture, old habits, old customs, and old ways of thinking, Suzhou in Mandarin. And these kids would get like hopped up on this crap, became the Red Guard, and like would go into temples and like rip down all the statuary and tear things down and destroy all the old kung fu masters got their asses beat by mobs to get rid of like old Chinese culture because it's embarrassing or whatever. There's all Chinese medicine, of course, and you can say, well, that stuff was bullshit, probably needed, but it doesn't matter. It was like destroy the old culture, and they would go home and they eventually got to where they're beating their parents, they're beating their teachers that were considered reactionaries, instead of being in favor of the Chinese Cultural Revolution. And Mao had a whole program he used in schools, and I see something so similar to that in our schools now that I'm freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yes.
Now you heard that, right? You all heard that. I didn't say that. I don't know who James Lindsay is, but I'm pretty sure he knows what he's talking about because everything he says lines up with what I've been researching when it comes down to these infamous dictators and how they broke down their country. I'm having a hard time with this piece, Toya. Like, I don't know how to, I'm having a really hard time with this piece. I'm thinking about the children. I was a kid once. I know what it's like to be played. I know what it's like to be groomed. I know what it's like to be manipulated. I know what it's like to be used. I know what it's like to want to be accepted and liked and treated fairly, and having to give up my body in order to get those things, to receive those things, and to believe that the people that's above you, that's telling you have a disorder and you have a speech impediment and you will be this and you will be that, and you accept those labels for what they are, and all you want to do is to be loved by somebody. So you find a field of people that will love bomb you to death because you're new. And once you become old to them, and I'm not talking years down the road, I'm talking after 2 or 3 sessions with them, you're now old to them. The scars that leaves on a person, especially a person that's young, that's where the yearning is coming from. That's where the cry is coming from. I know what it's like to be used and abused.
I know if you kept talking, you would connect with it.
I know what it's like to yearn for attention because I wasn't getting any. But once I realized there was never a turn for me, I was always the one serving. I was always the one doing. I was always the one giving up and giving in. And when I decided to have a backbone, that's when they discard me. I woke up.
And that's why you feel this way. The same thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm feeling. And I feel this way so heavily for children who don't know what's coming their way because their mommy and daddy are too busy fighting over stuff. You going to blame the Democrats for this? You the one was on post. It's your kid. You can't blame the Democrats for what you decided not to watch. You was too busy. You got to blame yourself at some point. You got to take responsibility and ownership at some point that you dropped the ball. And it's okay. We all make mistakes. We all fumble at some point. But to stay in delusion because you're too weak to accept responsibility. Come on now. Think of your kids, not your ego. This is Gary Lamb signing off. Lady Lamb, you guys have a good one.